جزيلا لمدير الجلسة المهندس خالد الحمود ولكل المتحدثين في الجلسة الثالثة من يومنا الثاني. مباشرة إلى العرض التالي بعنوان التعليم ورأس المال البشري في سلاسل الإمداد، تحديات المهارات الحالية والقضايا العالمية. يقدم هذا العرض مسؤول استراتيجيات التعليم الدولي وتطوير الأعمال في معهد تشارترد البريطاني للنقل واللوجستيات، السيد جون هارس.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, masala al-kia, assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. We're just going to spend about 20 minutes glimpsing into the global world of education, skills, and training development. So please come with me on this journey. Now, my name, as you see, is John Harris. I work for the Chartered Institute, excuse me, of Logistics and Transport. They are based in the UK, but we operate in around 40 countries across the world. In Saudi Arabia, we've been delighted to have been working through a number of training partners. Meli was the first, for over 10 years in developing and skilling people. What's really struck me from the conference on both days is the advancement and the speed that things are happening at here in Saudi and the Middle East as a whole. But globally, and the pandemic has had a lot to do with this, we've seen some massive changes in the rate and speed of training and learning. And I just want to explain this very simply. All of you will have probably used one of these while you've been here at the conference. Yeah? Everyone will have taken a bottle of water. Some of you will have consumed lots. Some of you will have sipped gently. Some of you will have drunk it all down in one go. Education and training is now not what it used to be. The global market and the ability to access training anywhere, anytime is becoming much easier. But there is still a challenge in our training industries globally in catching up with the technical advancement. Previously, employers wanted people with knowledge. Now, people are looking for competence. They're looking for ability to get on with it. They're looking for not just professional designation, but certainty that you can deliver and you can do what you say you can do. So there's a bit here for training bodies, professional institute like ourselves, and industry to say, how do we make all of that catch up properly? And how do we make our skills agenda accessible to everyone? It's a bit like the water. Education before consumed normally in one way, university and straight down. Now, you consume it in very different ways, and in fact, we're looking for a whole set of different bottles now. We're looking for completely different ways to look at how people learn. And interestingly, because of people's concentration span, because of the impact of COVID-19 in particular, what we found is people really, really need this bite-sized stuff. They need the stuff that's working at a pace of 10 minutes, and I've learnt the knowledge. What I need is half an hour to process that and be able to put it into practice. And that's actually what industry is calling for. So I see three critical things going on here. And I'll just leave these up. First of all, the value of human capital is critical. We can do lots of really good technical stuff. We can do lots of smart stuff. We can do lots of technical wizardry. But actually, that has to appreciate the end customer. And the human skill and the human touch will always, always be needed. But perhaps in different ways. So I'm just going to take you on a bit of a global tour. I'm going to do for a little walk around the world around what we've discovered as CILT. And then we're going to come back to Saudi at the end and put the challenge back to my friends in the audience about what next. So let's just have a little think about who CILT are. And let me pop that down. The Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport just had its 103rd birthday, was founded in UK as a chartered professional body, so that means it's had royal assent for coming into being. It does operate in 40 countries, and we have around 150 training partners. And what's interesting is the growth areas we are seeing: India, the Middle East, South Africa, and a couple of other target countries. But the Middle East has been growing and growing despite the pandemic, and actually because of some of the training needs. And we've had to reinvent ourselves quite heavily. No longer is assessment by exam. No longer is assessment quite narrow. It's looking much more broadly at what you can do on the job. Now, we have an international vision statement. This is really simply why we're here. And we exist with a family of a lot of other bodies like APIC, SIPS. Some of them are represented here at the conference. And the angle that CILT take is that we like to be a career partner for life. So you might start off in warehousing, and then you go on a bit of a journey, and you might end up being a supervisor in transport management part of the company. And then you might start going over here and go into procurement. And then you might actually find that your niche is in HR. But all on that journey, CILT has been your friend and has helped to develop you. This shows where we are. Very simply, the gold button is where we actually have a CILT branch. So that is where a group of industry professionals have got together. They have created a not-for-profit branch of our organization, and they're busy influencing policy. They're busy being the industry voice, and they are leading on things like research and skills development. And the purple ones are where we actually have training partners working with us in a cooperative way. And one of our, real opportunities here is there actually isn't a CILT Saudi Arabia. We've got a lot of really good training partners here, but actually the next natural step is for actually to have that voice and to be able to operate as a not-for-profit organization. At the heart of that is supporting our younger people, bringing more people into the profession, looking at bringing women into the sector, and also accelerating the skill development of people that are already here. Now, as a foundation, we have something called the key knowledge areas. And these are our standards for chartered membership. We use those for talking with not just universities, but talking with industry around our global standards. What's most important about this is a very, very simple diagram. And you'll see here that we've got what we call the T-shaped person. And for our members, most of our members will have to have demonstrated some competence in terms of management, understanding digital, understanding sustainability, understanding the value of training, understanding the concept of mentoring and how that fits in. But they also will have some depth, and that could be warehousing, it could be involved with passenger transport, it could be in the aviation supply chain, for example. And when we look to develop people into membership, we say, try and show and look back on your career and where you're going, that you are a balanced T-shaped person. Now, there will be people in the audience that love a technical challenge and a niche area, and they want to stay in that for a lifetime. You know, that's absolutely fine. But there'll also be those that may be very good general managers, but actually don't have an anchor. They don't have a specific skill that they can bring into the room, that they can call their own. And through professional bodies and developing our offering globally, what we're trying to do is support that kind of approach, particularly through mentoring. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you're trying to climb the career ladder, you're working your way up in terms of membership grades on the left-hand side, but you're also going to be involved in demonstrating competence on the right-hand side. So critically, okay, if you're going to progress up and actually get designations, it's not just about how senior you are, but it's about how rich that T-shaped experience is. Now, I guess after the conference, the presentations will be here. If anyone is particularly interested in this particular slide, which is how our qualifications fit together, do come and talk to me afterwards, or we can certainly make those available through the conference organizers. But our qualification building blocks have had to change because of COVID. Originally, we focused primarily on fixed qualifications with exams. But now what we have done is gone through much more of a bite-sized approach. You can take courses with exams, with assignments, with project-based work, and through some multiple choice at the lower levels. You can also tie it to industry placements. You can also link it, okay, to wider qualifications that are approved in your own country. So we've got this whole portfolio of our own qualifications. The first two columns, we approved degrees and masters, and indeed here in Saudi we focused on some of the enterprise zones. So in Jubail and Yanbu, there's some of the universities that we're working with now. And importantly, CPD. Continuing professional development is an absolute anchor now for anyone wanting to develop their skills. We've had to come up very quickly with short courses in digitalization, in giving young managers basically a crash course in everything they need to know about how to have a digital conversation and how that needs to be treated within their organizations. So overall, globally, all of the professional bodies involved within transport, within modal transportation, within supply chain, have had to do a bit of reconfiguration, particularly because of the pandemic. And supporting that, we also have our competency framework, which again is much more driving people to understand how good what they do is in their job, rather than just looking at what they know. And there's a big, big difference. So let's have a look at how this all ties up with your own Saudi Vision 2030. And here are just a few key points I wanted to make. So the whole point of Saudiization and making sure that local skills for local people carries on, that's really critical. Thanks to the HRDF structural funding and support, it means a lot of our students can access the introductory certificate and the certificate level qualification. And we are also seeing a big curve in interest and dedication from women wanting to enter and develop into the sector. Again, we see the 18 to 25 age bracket as a key target, and that's a global one, not just a Saudi one. And we see similar profiles to this in places like Oman and other countries in the Middle East. In addition, okay, the training support schemes that are already here, we need to start thinking about how do we make that sustainable. It's not just about having enough people in the flow chain of talent to keep everything going. It's how do we feed a growing sector? How do we accelerate their leadership potential? How do we enable general leaders, technical leaders, and entrepreneurs and thought partners? How do we make all of those types of people flourish? And a key part of that for me is around mentoring, coaching, and nurturing people within their work environment and finding time to do that. Let's have another look at the Saudi dimension now. This is actually taken from the World Bank Logistics Performance Index. Many of you will be familiar with it. And we've just tracked back the last 11 years. And what's really interesting is you see the bit in gold, the logistics competence has actually stayed fairly static, scoring a 3 out of 5. Okay? It's held its own in terms of the whole training agenda. You can see there's some fluctuation in the other indicators, and timeliness of supply chain has always been something up until pre-pandemic that has scored very highly. Now imagine what would happen to that whole circle, that whole spider's web, if you start to accelerate human capital development. So everyone's doing it. All of you in the room, I know, are committed to it. But if you accelerate it and you give it just that little bit more push, what impact will that actually have on some of these other indicators? We have a challenge. I'm going to be so open with you. We have a challenge in the UK. One of the challenges in the UK is there's lots of money for infrastructure, lots of money for tech, for digital, for building things, for roads, for railways, all of that kind of stuff that's expanding. But then you actually need to keep those human skills alive and refreshed. There's always going to be a catch-up. And one of the challenges that we do have, certain industries in the UK, particularly using hydrogen technology and alternatives to power generation, that is moving so fast, there aren't enough people. And it takes about 5 years to set up a training course and get it approved by everyone. That's too late. The industry's on the next version by then. So a challenge and something for you to think about is, if we were here in 5 years' time at the 8th, supply chain conference, and I was showing you that, where would you expect Saudi to see? Is it around the 4? Is it around the 5? And what part do you think skills generation and skills improvement has to play in that journey? I was having a little look around this, and I found the Al Ain News, and they put forward this graphic which put very simply to anyone what's happened with the supply chain decay because of the pandemic. So these are some of the things that have gone wrong, and we've got to kind of break into it. One of the things that I read about was that some of the sectors are a challenge. So the renewable energy sector, there's the tech there, but actually the human capital is so critical to making those things really happen and happen fast enough. So again, there's a bit of a time delay. And how do we address that as a committed family in this country? Globally, the issue of skilling and reskilling, particularly culturally, we've heard the word mindset from other panelists. But mindset, particularly for people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, that have always done something a certain way. So, if I look at my career, I learned when I was 20, I learned on the job, I did stuff. I'm happy, I've got 10 years perhaps left of my working life, and I look back and I say, that's the way I delivered, and I'm happy with it. And then suddenly all this new stuff comes at me, and I feel threatened. So, whilst friends, there's a huge emphasis on young people and getting young people into the industry, and I'm 100% for that. I'm also 100% for the reskilling and resupporting of those people that feel they're under a little bit of mindset attack, because they need to be able to adjust really quickly based on 30 years of back history that they've been struggling with. In order to do that, CILT has looked at a global coaching and mentoring program, because we often know that that mentoring, that supportive nature, the hand on the shoulder, is how people would respond better to being adaptable, to becoming flexible, not necessarily putting them on a training course. That might be part of the solution, but actually creating an agile learning environment with a structured mentoring program may well be the answer to some of that cultural mindset challenge. So that brings me on to this. So this is actually being launched next week in Australia at our international convention. We've already been running this program for about 2-3 years. We've been piloting with our women's groups, with our young professionals groups, and with our CILT branches. But what we've decided to do is to bring it together into a very clear kit that helps CILT organizations in the country, for example, UAE, corporates and small medium enterprises apply the principles. So no one is exempt from this. Like the bottle of water, everyone needs it. This is something that we firmly believe democratically needs to be made available to everyone. And this may be one way to deal with some of those mindset challenges you may be facing. When we deliver our training in relation to coaching and mentoring, this is what we do, folks. We ask people to think very seriously about their behaviors in the workplace. You see, how many of you are fixers, okay? I was brought up to be a fixer, so if someone needs help, hey, I'm here and I will fix it for you. But actually, I have to stop doing that sometimes. I have to stop fixing, because if I'm fixing, the person that I'm helping isn't learning. They may not be able to fix it themselves. There's codependency. I might be controversial here. There are probably consultants in the room. I was a consultant too. But one of the challenges that I found in the consultancy world is that whenever you do any consultancy delivery, what you should be doing is automatically embedding skills transfer, knowledge transfer, support. So actually, your client doesn't need you eventually, or doesn't need you for that particular purpose. They might find another assignment for you to move on to, but actually, you've embedded it. And one of the things that we say very strongly is that we should use coaching questioning, we should use impartial engagement, we should use what we call unconscious bias in order to get the best out of your mentees. So whether you're someone that kind of likes to do the direct advice, have a think about whether the pure coaching approach, the mentoring around technical, financial, or business skills, or softer skills like presenting, is what is really needed. And we feel really strongly that this is going to be one of the game changers for us. For us, this is a member-to-member offer. It's not something that involves money. Okay, money is not the transaction here. The transaction is time and an attitude of mutual support to people that want to come through the industry and to develop. So, let's bring this back to Saudi Arabia. What does an ideal Saudi Arabia look like in terms of human capital? Is it a place where the skills development is accessible in very different ways? Is it a place where the mentoring and coaching is so embedded that you only need training in sweet spots? Is it one where actually the training needs and the analysis of that is so up to date with industry, there isn't this time lag? I think all of us in the room, if I'm honest, are potential change makers. You are within your organization. You're change makers, you're motivators, and you're accelerators. And if you've detected any of this has resonated with you, that actually there's a bit of a gap between the training needs and actually what's on offer, then speak up. Explain what that gap looks like, but also let's look very creatively at the way in which we solve that issue. Go back to the bottles. I'm going back to my bottle. You know, it's not more of these glass bottles. It might be different bottles that contain the training solution. So finally, how does CILT see this happening as a professional body? Well, we're a global family, as I've said. The kind of thing that we support our students and any learners and mentors with is our knowledge centre. It's an online resource in the UK that contains a huge amount of global intelligence. And we also have a language course which actually was developed primarily for the Arabic-speaking market. And this was to help Arabic-speaking countries with basically an induction into some of the language and terms to support everyone to a benchmark standard on communicating in English, particularly if they were handling international business and contracts. So finally, we are a global family. I've been delighted to be a part of your family for the last 2 days. But please, 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 spend a bit of time reflecting on the human capital impact. Think about what you can do in your job role to make a difference. Think what you can do to be a change maker in this particular sphere. And above all, enjoy training, enjoy learning, and encourage the next generation to follow in your footsteps. Shukran jazilan, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. الآن مع الأستاذ حسام القاضي أمين عام المجلس الصناعي للحديث عن دور المجلس الصناعي في تمكين القطاع الخاص. أستاذ حسام.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله، مساكم الله بالخير جميعا. هذا يظهر لي أنه آخر سيشن، فبكون ضيف خفيف بإذن الله. بس عندي فضول قبل ما أبدأ، ودي أعرف من الحضور لو ترفعون يديكم من اللي من القطاع الخاص ومن اللي من الحكومة. خاص؟ طمنتوني. زين، يعني الرسالة الأساسية هي أصلا في السيشن هذا موجهة للقطاع الخاص، فطمنتونا أنه فيه شريحة كبيرة من القطاع الخاص نقدر نخدمها إن شاء الله. الحقيقة عنوان هذا اللقاء هو التعريف بالمجلس الصناعي. ما هو بالضرورة تعرفون كل شيء موجود فيه، لكن الأهم تعرفون دور المجلس وكيف ممكن يخدم القطاع الخاص في مسيرته في التنمية. مستعجلين علي، يبغون يبدون يخلصون بدري. طيب، المجلس تأسس عام 2019 في مطلع 2019 الماضي في شهر يناير. كان الهدف الأساسي من تأسيس المجلس هو فتح قناة مستمرة مع القطاع الخاص ومباشرة مع القطاع لفهم احتياجات القطاع، تحديات القطاع، وأيضا المعالجة لهذه التحديات. والدور الأخير هو تحديدا لإشراك القطاع الخاص في صياغة السياسات والأنظمة واللوائح التي تصدر من الدولة. المجلس فيه عضوية من عديد من منظومات الحكومة، في تمثيل لمنظومة النقل، منظومة التجارة، منظومة الطاقة والموارد البشرية من الجهاز الحكومي. أيضا في المقابل فيه تمثيل من كبار الشركات اللي تمثل قطاعات استراتيجية مستهدفة في القطاع، من الصناعات الغذائية والطاقة والطاقة المتجددة وأيضا المقاولات ومواد البناء. حرصنا في هذا التمثيل أنه يكون فيه عدد كبير جدا من القطاع الخاص في حوالي 15 شركة، ولا ينحصر هذا التمثيل هذا فقط للاجتماعات الرسمية اللي تقام بشكل دوري برئاسة معالي الوزير واللجنة التنفيذية، لكن أيضا في تواصل مباشر مع اتحاد الغرف، مع اللجان الوطنية، وكذلك الجمعيات رسمية. فإحنا نتواصل بشكل مباشر اليوم مع اتحاد الغرف، مع اللجان الوطنية اللي موجودة فيها، نفهم احتياجاتها، نحاول نحقق متطلباتها. أيضا إذا تواجه تحديات مع الجهات، بالذات الجهات اللي مشاركة في المجلس، في العمل على معالجتها وتذليل العقبات. زي ما تشوفون المجلس يرأسه معالي الوزير وعضوية أصحاب المعالي والسعادة من مختلف الجهات الحكومية. أيضا الجهة الأخرى تشوفون أعضاء المجلس الصناعي من القطاع الخاص، هذا مثل ما ذكرت لكم قبل شوي فيه تمثيل من اللجان الوطنية، أيضا من الشركات الكبيرة في المملكة. حوكمة المجلس تقريبا يجتمع بحوالي 4 مرات في السنة، واللجنة التنفيذية حوالي 6 مرات تقريبا في السنة. رئيس المجلس هو معالي الوزير، ودور المجلس هو اعتماد حوكمة وهيكل المجلس، وكذلك مخاطبة الجهات الحكومية ذات العلاقة في ما يتعلق بالقطاع الخاص. أيضا اللجنة التنفيذية يرأسها معالي نائب وزير الصناعة، وهذا يتابع بشكل أقرب مع فرق العمل اللي موجودة في المجلس. طبعا المجلس فيه فرق عمل على 6 مسارات أساسية: في المحتوى المحلي، في الطاقة، تنمية الصادرات، في تدريب وتوطين العاملين، في ضمان العدالة في المنافسة في الأسواق المحلية. أيضا فرق العمل يرأسها كل فريق يرأسه واحد من ممثلين جهات المنظومة في منظومة الصناعة، وفي تمثيل أيضا من القطاع الخاص من اللجان الوطنية يكون موجود في كل فريق عمل. يجتمعون تقريبا كل أسبوعين، يدرسون كل المطالب والتحديات، وأيضا تعرض عليهم الأنظمة والتشريعات، مشاريع في مرحلة الطرح قبل الإقرار. آلية عمل المجلس، احنا نستقبل طبعا من التجمعات الرسمية من اتحاد الغرف، أو اللي يرد إلى وزارة الصناعة والثروة المعدنية مباشرة، ويتم التحقق من ما يتم استلامه اليوم، والتأكد من هذه التحديات أنها تكون فعلا على أرض الواقع وأنها لها أثر، وبالتالي يتم تحديد أيضا أولوية العمل على هذه التحديات. هذه طبعا ضمن حوكمة عمل المجلس، هو آليات التصعيد في حال واجهنا في أمانة المجلس تحديات في التنفيذ أو في معالجة تحديات تواجه القطاع، أو حتى في تنفيذ مطالب للقطاع. في آلية عمل للتصعيد، سواء إذا كان التحدي داخل وزارة الصناعة أو داخل المنظومة أو خارج منظومة الصناعة والثروة المعدنية. والقناة زي ما تشوفون على اليسار، احنا عندنا قناة مباشرة مع لجنة برنامج ندلب، ومن برنامج ندلب إلى مجلس الشؤون الاقتصادية والتنمية. اليوم عندنا آلية لاستقبال التحديات، فزي ما شفنا تمثيل القطاع الخاص كبير، فالأهم أنه يكون التجمع موجود، يكون التحدي فالid، نستقبله احنا، نتأكد أنه ما هو مكرر يتم العمل عليه الآن، بحيث أنه نبدأ ونحطه في مساره. اليوم بس يعني أعطيكم تصور، اليوم استقبلنا من حوالي سنة إلى الآن 93 تحدي، اللي يتم العمل عليه حوالي 27 الآن. ما أنجز وانتهى من أول السنة حتى الآن 4. وبستعرض معكم بس يعني شيء بسيط من المنجزات اللي صارت في المجلس. استبعدنا يمكن حوالي 33 تحدي، إما أنها كانت موجودة أو أنها تكون يعني ما هي فالid. والآن في البايب لاين في حوالي 33 تحدي يتم دراسته اليوم. البراكتس اللي بدينا فيه تقريبا حوالي 6 شهور إلى الآن هو إشراك القطاع الخاص في الأدلة والإجراءات والأنظمة. طرحنا تقريبا حوالي 6 مشاريع أنظمة، واستقبلنا عليها ملاحظات، وترسل هذه باسم وزارة الصناعة والقطاع الخاص إلى الجهة المعنية. الآن احنا مسوين آلية أيضا لتحديد أولوية للتحديات والعمل عليها، بحيث أنه يعني يكون نطبق يعني ال 80-20 رول، أن نركز على التحديات ذات الأثر الأكبر واللي ممكن تتحقق بشكل أسرع. الآن الاستراتيجية إن شاء الله في خطواتها الأخيرة استراتيجية وطنية للصناعة في للإقرار، وهذه الهيكلة المقترحة الآن ونموذج الحوكمة المقترح الآن، وهذا يوضح دور المجلس الصناعي على الجانب الأيسر من نموذج الحوكمة، وهو القناة الرسمية للتواصل مع القطاع الخاص وإيصال تحدياته مع جهات المنظومة والممكنين في الجهات الحكومية، وهذا له ارتباط إلى وزارة الصناعة واللجنة العليا للصناعة. هذه القطاعات الاستراتيجية المستهدفة اليوم حوالي 12 قطاع من أصل حوالي 16 قطاع، هذه مستهدفة في الاستراتيجية الوطنية للصناعة، بدءا من قطاع الكيميكالز والفود إلى قطاع المستحضرات الدوائية والمعدات الطبية. هذه مستهدفات الاستراتيجية اليوم، وهذه ربطنا أيضا التحديات اللي نعمل عليها تكون من ضمن الأولوية أنها تكون من القطاعات المستهدفة. وزي ما تشوفون يمكن أول 4 قطاعات في كل محور تحقق تقريبا 70 إلى 80% من المستهدف في الاستراتيجية. الثلاث محاور الأساسية هي المساهمة في الناتج المحلي الإجمالي والجوب كرييشن، وأخيرا في تنمية الصادرات. الآن في المرحلة القادمة احنا في أعمال المجلس الآن في خطة تفعيل الاستراتيجية، نبي نلتقي مع ممثلين القطاعات الاستراتيجية الأساسية المستهدفة في الاستراتيجية اللي لهم تمثيل خاصة في اتحاد الغرف أو في الجمعيات. نبي نلتقي فيهم نعرض عليهم المستهدفات وأيضا الممكنات المطروحة، وناخذ مرئياتهم إذا كان في ممكنات إضافية ممكن تحقق فائدة أكبر وكونتريبيوشن مساهمة أعلى في الوصول للمستهدف. هذه أبرز منجزات المجلس على 6 أو 5 محاور أساسية. مجال استدامة الشركات، هذا كانت من مطالب الصناعيين، هو تفعيل ميزانية تنمية القطاع الخاص من خلال مبادرة دعم استدامة الشركات. أيضا تمديد فترة السداد على رأس المال عامل، بدال 12 شهر تكون 24 شهر. في مجال التنافسية وعدالة المنافسة، إنشاء وتفعيل اللجنة التوجيهية، والآن في لجنة لعدالة المنافسة يرأسها معالي وزير الصناعة والثروة المعدنية، وتقوم بأدوار هامة جدا اليوم في حماية المنتجات المحلية. أيضا تم تطبيق قواعد المنشأ على الواردات ورفع الرسوم الجمركية لعديد من المنتجات اللي متوفرة في السوق المحلي. فيما يتعلق بالمحتوى المحلي، مؤخرا تم إقرار ضوابط المحتوى المحلي على الشركات المملوكة بنسبة 51% فأكثر، وخطة التدرج في التنفيذ. كما تم أيضا أتمتة رفع الشكاوي المتعلقة بالمحتوى المحلي وطلبات الإدراج. في مجال تنمية الصادرات، أنشئ بنك الاستيراد والتصدير وزيادة عدد أيام مهلة السماح في بعض الموانئ. في مجال التوظيف والتدريب زي ما أنتم عارفين الإعفاء من المقابل المالي للشركات الصناعية. هذا ما لدي، وآسف على التأخير إن كان أخرناكم. شكراً.